Thank you, John. Thank you very much. It's a delight to be here, and good morning to you. And John has been a great leader from a consciousness standpoint about how we restore. And he understands the deep linkage between soil and ocean. And we understand that, by God, if we don't get this carbon back in the soil, the oceans die, we die, and it continues. And so the soils are such a focus for all of us as we move forward. Ray Archuleta is right on. And Ray, you and I spent the early part of our careers teaching lies, because that's the way we were trained. And we taught industrialized, intensive agriculture. And I was a full professor tenured at Cal Poly. What I saw globally were major issues that we weren't addressing, nor could the science we were promulgating really address it. So when I looked at what I saw globally in traveling, the four major issues that were happening upon civilization was the climate threat, continued hunger challenges, which there are huge famines in Africa right now, a water challenge globally, and we in California certainly understand that, and a soil loss. We have 60 harvests left on this planet. 60. And Ray showed you the pictures of where our soil's going, and we're degrading it at the same time if we're not just eroding it. So what happens, and this is to support you, John, just a little bit, and here's a picture of a chemical fertilized-based corn crop right next to a cover crop sourced nitrogen, which is an organic kind of a system, in a heavy rain year in Pennsylvania. And so the more organic, biologically based system held on to its nitrogen. That corn stayed green down to the last leaf until the frost came. What happened to the nitrogen, same amount kind of, on the chemical based, but it went down the river. And so we create this eutrophication from agriculture. Even though raised very conservatively I was taught take personal responsibility. One of the young men I trained that ended up in Congress said, as a good Republican, take personal responsibility. And I say, as agriculturalists, we should take personal responsibility. That's our nutrients that is killing the water and the oceans and the bays and the rivers, over 400 dead zones in the world. Ray's talking about erosion and loss of soil. It's everywhere. This is why we have 60 harvests left. It's in Templeton next to me by that farmer. This was a field next to the research I was doing with Howard Buffett in Africa. On the field next to my plots and my field demonstration sites, I asked the guys, bring the tractor in and would you knock those weeds down? All those weed seeds are going to come into my field, because it was right adjacent. They dissed it once. One rain event, I go, oh shit, look at what happened. Just one disking. There went the soil. Felt a little bad about that one. Anyway, when we look at my field, which was sandy soil, you would have called it a beach. And Howard Buffett used to say, Tim, I'm going to give you the best, worst soils you could find. Because if you can prove your organic, he would never use the term, your biological no-till system, then here's the bad soil. So I went in there, and a guy came and he said, Tim, bring from your field a soil clod, and this is Ray's a slaking test. He says, I want to do a slaking test and show these people we're teaching today about your no-till system. And I thought, I've heard about that, but this is sand. It's just not going to work. And he said, and then get one from the field next door that you dissed once, and the one on the right's a pasture-based system. So the one on the left was a field that dissed one time, and that's how fast it disaggregates. The one in the center were my fields, and I didn't even think I'd get it up to the main headquarters in my old truck that it would bounce apart. But look at the aggregation in sand from 2 years of no-till with a biological-based system where the mycorrhizae is starting to exude its exudate, its glomalin, and gluing and holding that together. What an amazing thing. When the heavy rain event hit, you didn't see any erosion whatsoever. Getting soil and biology and health back into that system. I don't have a pointer here, but I just want to say, when at Rodale, and one of the reasons I was attracted to go there is I gave a seminar, said, gee, I see these are the three most important things. If you guys agree, then let's talk. And one of the senior scientists said, well, we have some soil carbon data here that will really support what you're thinking about. And the one on the right was 2,300 kilograms of carbon if you apply compost that you could start to sequester in the soil. So that starts to address all 4 of those issues: hunger, water, soil loss, and climate, because we're taking it out of the atmosphere, putting it back. And we wrote a paper, Paul Hepperly and I did in 2008, positioning that we could sequester all of it. We could draw it all down. And of course, we took a lot of hits, but Al Gore listened, and some other people listened, and we got some attention by some people. But what I think is encouraging is, and I'll show you a slide later, because a later speaker this morning is going to talk about much more robust numbers, and compost there's not enough in the world to fix it. But Ray talked a little bit about multi-species cover crop, and Christine Jones, I asked her to share the slide with me. She's from Australia. We were in Paris recently, and she had shown one slide. I said, gee, can I have that? So it's the same field, but with a multi-species cover crop and a rain-fed system. Look at the yield differences. So when soil gets covered with vegetation, when it gets covered with different root structures and different organisms that are being supported by the root structures in the soil, you end up not only not having a naked soil, a bare soil, and a soil with fever, but you're holding the moisture in the system, you're building the fertility in the system, and you're creating the nutrients because of the diversity that's happening. And tomorrow I'm having a little demonstration on my farm, and I planted a summer cover crop, irrigated it up, and I find, boy, I don't even have to irrigate it much. Here in hot, dry California, it works so well. So David Johnson, who's speaking next, has summarized some of Gabe Brown's data that Ray's talked about with respect to how much sequestration can happen. But Gabe learned this over time, as I understand it, as he tried things, as he no-tilled, as he added cover crops, as we see that move across there. And when he moved to multi-species cover crop, we start to see an increase in soil carbon. And it wasn't until he brought the livestock in did that really jump, and where he's getting 22 tons of carbon per hectare per year. Gee, that solves a lot of problems really, really fast for all of us on those 4 issues that I talk about. So what happens here is if we take that earlier graph that I shared with you, third from right is that compost level I was talking about. Boy, we could get 2,300 kilograms. There was a study out of the University of Georgia, and then Richard Teague at Texas A&M is doing great work on holistic management practices in sequestering carbon. But that Georgia showed about 8 tons just when you started to mob graze in a wet environment. And on those grasses, what an amazing level. David Johnson, who's here today, has started to show through biological enhanced agriculture, we can get much higher than that. We can solve this, but it takes a political will, it takes a consumer focus, it takes research at a university like Chico State that we're trying to invest in. It's a very unique model. I'd love to talk to you about that, with some leadership there that could make a difference. And it takes farmers, and we need people like Ray, and we need people like David who can talk with those farmers. It's one of the reasons we need the term regenerative, not organic, because the door gets slammed in your face if you use that term with most farmers. We need to build bridges, not divides, and open this door and restore our environment as fast as we can. We can absolutely take us below 350. We can take us to pre-industrial levels. And I would at least posit for you to consider, what the hell is 350 about? There is no history in our survival as a species on this planet where we've been at 350. We've been at 280. There's no evidence we can survive 350. And today we're at 400 plus. Our job is a very steep hill for us to climb. The beauty is nature, if we support the robustness of it and learn from what some of the luminaries in this audience can teach us, we can restore it all. But we have to get busy, and that means today. Thank you very much.